Hello and welcome back to Better Than Adventure. Last time we were here, I did some work and made that lighthouse over there, but I thought about a small change that I would want to make. So I'm gonna really quickly make it. So my idea was to make some stairs. You can see where this is going. Then go up. And replace, yeah, this with... Oh, that's... Huh. Well, we can just leave it like that, I guess. Actually, no, I'm gonna... do this. There we go. I've been working on a little something like a somewhat more edited series of stuff. In terms of, like, I guess you could say effort put in. I guess I'll see how it goes. I'll just start uploading it whenever, like how it usually goes. And yeah, from then on we'll see. There you go. Completed. What do we do now? I don't know. We should be probably, in the business of, you know, building something over here. Which should mean, yeah, we already have a path. I'm gonna dump a lot of the stuff in here. And, I'm going to follow this path and see where I could potentially go with this. I think when you get to somewhere here, the path should just turn into the bricks and be like 1 to 2 wide. 1 to 2 wide. Oh. Yeah, that's what happens when you don't plug your creeper holes. Things that spawn there. So yeah, we'll just follow this path, go up here, and go to there. So, yeah, we can immediately start with this, and then move on, question mark? I don't know. You know, I've been thinking, there are some YouTubers that I've seen, like, there was a video I watched recently that covered some, people who were... a bunch of people, some of them were definitely inspired by Scott the Wars, some of them were kind of clones, and some of them were... basically, most of them were just kind of cool. By cool, I mean, you know, like, normal. They weren't doing anything wrong, really. I mean, what? One of them is gonna be like, oh wow, this guy was like a kid who made, you know, videos that were kind of shitty in quality. Some of them are actually smaller than me. Whatever. Who cares? Like, let people have fun. But then there was this one guy who I watched before, and it feels like a lot of his... I was kind of curious, because this was a kind of big channel which still sort of fell off in terms of view numbers, and looking into it, it kind of felt like a rage bait fest. And just like, I mean, I can look at the titles and just immediately see like, wow, clickbait. Like saying Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the two, like, these are the best-selling Pokemon games since, like, the original games when Pokemania was in full force, right? Like, Pokemon now, thanks to those games, is way larger than how it was even, like, during 2020. But no, according to this person, it's immediately like, ha, this ruined the series. And he even has the fucking funny YouTube thing, which would have been way funnier like 10 years ago, mind you, where, like, he preemptively throws in, like, a caricature of somebody who would disagree with him, so he can debunk, you know, the straw man. Which, again, if we're talking about something from ages ago, that would be funny, but we're not. We're talking about something from today. And that's just kind of dumb in today's day and age. And it is kind of funny to put this into perspective, because I have kind of felt like some of the stuff I've made, specifically surrounding one particular thing, is, some people definitely didn't take it the best way. Some people even assumed the videos I made were designed to be, like, rage bait. And the answer is no. Like, I'm sorry. I mean, it is true that I don't like the N64. But that's because it just doesn't have a lot of games on it that I like. I like Paper Mario specifically on the system, if I could name one Nintendo game. I was never big on the Zeldas, even if I can't say I've had a bad experience with Echoes of Wisdom. It was quite fun. I like how beds were the ultimate solution. But generally speaking, you know, as somebody who didn't grow up with the Nintendo 64, or PlayStation for that matter, and as somebody who spent most of their early years seeing, like, a bunch of N64 content on YouTube and stuff, I have to say, like, yeah, I can't say any of my videos were made in bad faith. Like, something some people gotta realize is there's this, I mentioned this before, but there's this idea that I've seen online. Basically, it's a nostalgia thing where, why do, like, in the past, right, why do people talk about whatever the big kids thing kinda was, right? Culturally or whatever. It's for the simple reason that, like, a lot of people who are nostalgic for a specific era are kids. Or, like, sorry, were kids back then. And so, obviously, they would be nostalgic around their childhood. You know, for somebody who's nostalgic about the 2000s, you know? Like, there's little reason for, like, them to be nostalgic about fucking Manhunt. Unless their parents let them play Manhunt for some reason, which... okay. But, like, you get what I mean. It's just... obviously, they're gonna be nostalgic about the stuff they themselves played. And it's kind of funny because, in a way, the internet generation, especially, like, I'd argue it's more with, like, people like me who grew up in the older internet before everything was kind of consolidated. A lot of us are nostalgic for, like, hey, I feel a little bit of nostalgia when I see specifically the NES over composite on an LCD, or, like, you know, captured on a fixed pixel grid and then displayed on a, you know, whatever. Because when I watched YouTube as a kid, when, like, the AVGN was talking about how shitty Action 52 was, he was, you know, playing those games that way, and that's how I experienced it. Is there something fundamentally wrong with my experience of that because it's not as authentic as playing, you know, Action 52 myself? Of course not. But the truth is that a lot of the time, your experience of something will be the deciding factor of if you like that thing or not. Very rarely can you be like, you know, most people aren't professional reviewers, quote-unquote, right? And generally speaking, the only thing a professional reviewer is somebody whose opinion matters, you know? That's the difference. If you are someone whose opinion matters when you say a review, you know, when you review something, if people actually care for what you have to say, you're a professional reviewer. Or more accurately, you are, like, if it's your job, but you know what I mean. So, like, don't give me that, I mean, it's often like when somebody... You see this all the time, where they try to rationalize why a reviewer doesn't like a game they do. Either with IGN, like, whenever IGN gives a game a bad score, either they give, like, a mid-game a 5, or they give Starfield a 7, or they give, like, a game which gamers don't think is good a high score. People are gonna run in and be like, well, how dare these dumb reviewers do this? They don't know anything, clearly, and, I mean, no, you can just not care. It's also the whole, like, looking back at reviewers and not understanding that reviewers are a part of culture just much as everyone else. Like, a lot of the time during the PS1 and Saturn era, a lot of reviewers and a lot of normies were obsessed, quote-unquote, with, 3D graphics, you know, or whatever, because it was the new cool thing or whatever. But the truth is, a lot of really cool games back then still were 2D. But then you would see, like, critics say, well, this is a good game, however, it has 2D characters, you know, for, like, an RPG or something, and that kind of pushed companies in a bad direction, where they, like, refused to greenlight PS1 games because, oh, it's 2D. Nobody likes 2D games, even though they clearly did. But, yeah, like, it's a cultural thing, most of all. Like, you see people argue over this stuff all the time. But, realistically, the reason why people hate something like, you know, why people hate something like, that IGN review where they said Pokemon has too much water is most of the time because they just can't read. We can get to that later, but generally speaking, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the question of should you trust reviewers? Well, who knows? Why should you trust people who ask you if you should trust reviewers? Why should you trust trusting reviewers? Why should you care? And I honestly think that is the main question which I want to give to a lot of people whenever people argue about review scores. Like, you gotta realize, even if you disagree with a reviewer, oftentimes they can actually justify what they say with actual, you know, facts. They don't have to bullshit. I think a good example of a horrible review is that one Video Game Donkey review of, Octopath Traveler, where it was technically not a review, except it was a review. Because he made a review of the game. He just didn't call it a review because it was purposefully designed to smear the game. And so when people called him out for making a video which essentially just smeared the game, he could just hide behind the fact that it's not technically called a review of the game, and that therefore, all of his bullshit that he said in the video was okay, because it's not a review, you can't criticize it. Well, why would you criticize me shitting on a game for things that aren't real? Why would you criticize me taking off all of my armor and weapons and specifically using a weak attack just to make the game seem worse than it is? If anything, you're the one who's making the review bad, you know? And generally speaking, this is not just a thing that he does, this is a thing which can be pretty fucking prevalent in, like, you know, gamer circles. Because you gotta realize a lot of YouTubers don't actually care about reviewing stuff. They care about being quote-unquote entertainers. This is one thing which I think Scott does really well. Because even in his videos where it's very clear that he has, like, you know, his own, you know, where he clearly has his own nostalgia or whatever, or his own biases, I can't say I've ever seen him actually say something that I would see, you know, see and really think like, wow, he's just bullshitting here, you know? I did make that one thing, like that one little edit, where I made fun of where he talked about how Mario defined 3D gaming or whatever. Cause that was fucking stupid. Like, you're really gonna say Mario did it? Mario? The game that came out, like, after games like Quake or Tomb Raider. No, wait, not Tomb Raider. After games like Quake. After games like Resident Evil. And the truth is, I mean, was Mario 64 influential? Well, that's kind of where you run into a problem which I'm not a big enough YouTuber to really drive, you know, into people's skulls, which is, what does it mean to be influential? On one hand, you can argue that influentiality just means how popular something is, but, like, is it? Like, you could say, for instance, you know, you could say a game has been influential, but very few games can have such an effect that, like, they are essentially responsible for gaming as a medium, and Mario 64 is fun of a game as it can be. It's not that. It's not the original Super Mario Bros., nor is it like the original Dragon Quest. Or like, I'd even argue Tomb Raider. Mario 64, for as, you know, fundamental as it was to the creation of the Collectathon, like, Collectathons just weren't the gaming genre, you know? Like, when you talk about collectathons, not mentioning Mario 64's criminal, but like, when you talk about the history of the fucking, you know, if I had to pick between them, I'd probably have to pick the Tomb Raider when I was talking about, like, the influence of 3D gaming, because, I mean, look at the difference between them. Tomb Raider is far more open. It's far more, you know, 3D. If you look at something like, you know, if you look at something like fucking Uncharted or whatever, you can see that, if anything, the influence comes from games like Tomb Raider. Those low frequencies... footsteps sound like fucking FNAF, and I hate it. Anyways, but the point is that even so, like, a lot of people seem to have this idea that any critique of how people would treat something like Mario 64 or whatever is just like... They think it's an attack of some kind, and it's really weird to hear because, like, obviously not. And it's like, you know, do I hate Mario? No. No, I think he's okay. I've never met the guy, but I assume he'd probably be quite a decent fellow, you know? But generally speaking, you're gonna run into this issue literally all the time. A critique of a video game, or a correction of something someone said about some game, is in fact an attack on the very medium of gaming, and specifically an attack on the video games that some guy online likes. Because keep in mind, no matter how good or shitty a video game is, first of all, you're always gonna have someone who really likes that game, and you'll always have someone who really hates that game. I mean, when I played Buck Bumble for that initial run thing I did for a little bit, may continue, we'll see, I ended up finding it as it is. Completely atrocious. A travesty of a video game. Fucking horrible. And then some of the comments were genuinely distraught that I didn't like the game. A lot of people were really angry in the fucking, you know, and it makes sense to a degree, because who else would look up an initial, like, run video? Or more accurately, like, whenever somebody would look up a, video, right, about fucking Buck Bumble, chances are there's somebody who likes the game, and they want to see, like, ooh, has somebody talked about this yet? And then when they see it's a video where, I tear into the game for being a massive heap of shit, that doesn't go over very well with them, you know? And I mean, I've talked to some people who are, like, trying to tell me, well, at the time when Buck Bumble came out, there wasn't really much else like it on the system, so it kinda gets a pass, but, like, why would you give a game a pass just because it's the first, you know, just because on that console it was basically the only game which really allowed you to fly, excluding that horrifically awful Aero Fighters Assault game? If anything, that should be, like, you know, if anything, that should be a knock against the entire system. Like, the PS1 had fucking Ace Combat, and what, the best the N64 had was Buck Bumble? Are you serious? It's kind of my nemesis game for, like, in the angry game reviewer sort of way, except I'm not an angry game reviewer, but it's kind of funny because sometimes, like, somebody would just come up and link me, like, oh, hey, did you hear that, the guys, you know, at Argonaut said that a remake, or, like, a remaster, or whatever the fuck, of Buck Bumble is not off the table, and, like, that's something my evil AVGN twin would make me play, you know? It'd be something like, I'd see, like, Mortal Kombat Special Forces, right? And I'd say, like, yeah, Mortal Kombat Special Forces, the only special thing about this game's how shit it is. And you know what? I'm not playing it. Maybe if someone forced me to, but that's not gonna happen. And then my evil twin comes out of, like, the ground, or, like, comes out behind me and, like, forces me to play it at gunpoint or whatever. And, I am like, well, damn. So that's what Special Forces meant. And then, like, the guy, you know, looks... You know, you could make some funny stuff with that, but, generally, similarly to Turok, no, gross, ew, fuck, no. Maybe the remaster could fix it. I know it made Turok not horrifically shit, and just kind of Turok, but, you know. It is kind of sad, honestly, where, like... Man, Turok fucking sucks so bad. But every time you bring it up, somebody gets mad. We're talking about the original N64 version. Like, it's one of those things where I tried playing it numerous times, and every single time I did, I would bounce off of the fucking game because it's just bad. Like, I would have to steal the AVGN bit, but, like, you know, look, respawning enemies in a first-person shooter with limited health and ammo, where the enemies will continuously respawn and attack you, and they have hit scan that hits you from far away, and the draw distance is tiny, and you have limited lives, and save points are very few and far between, and you get a game that is, oh, and you have really, really shit platforming where the controls and physics are awful, and sometimes you can fall to your fucking death and die. And where you have annoying environmental hazards that can sometimes be an insta, like falling down a pit that's endless. And you just kind of end up having a game that's really awful to play. Combine that with the massively large levels, and you can't exit them, I don't think, until you get to the end, and some of them have a boss, so... If you come in and save over your save file, and you may be in an infinite Turok loop where you can't exit the level and you're continuously forced to die. But, I mean, that's Turok for you. There's a reason I despise that game, and it's because I had to play it. And yeah, trust me, there is no amount of convincing that you could do to make me, you know, change my mind on something like Turok. It is just such an awful, awful experience that I genuinely do. I just can't imagine a situation where my opinion of that game would change. And from what I've seen from, like, the Beast playing it, Turok 2 is even worse. And I can't wait to see him play Turok 3. I know the live streams say that he's already beaten it, and he gave it the same score as he did to the second game, which is like a 5, which isn't very high on his list, from my understanding. I'm just gonna wait for the actual normal video to come out, because, you know, I feel like that's better. Wait, I'm gonna just have a... I think it's gonna make more sense if I use fences here. Yeah, down to the bedrock. Well, bedrock, but you know what I mean. I mean, technically, yeah, down to the bedrock, literally, because that's, bedrock in the real world is the rock that's, like, at the bottom of stuff. That's, you know, the place where the foundations would go down to. Then I guess we can also change this. But yeah, you're never gonna convince me Turok's a good game. I don't care. It's also the thing where I don't really care enough. Like, I tried playing it numerous times, and I couldn't get past the fucking second level. And I didn't want to put in any more effort into the game, so there you go. I'm never learning it. Okay. Now how would you get down there? Yeah, I don't know. Point is, just as you're never gonna convince me Turok is a good game, because I played it, you also can't really convince people that something they don't like, sorry, that something they really like is actually bad. I mean, you can convince some, like, soup brain idiot that, oh, your opinion on this piece of media is wrong and you should change it because some other guy on the internet said so. I mean, that has happened. People have had their opinions changed because some random person on the internet had sometimes valid, sometimes completely fucking ludicrously stupid critiques of something, and then, like, you know, because of that, they have, changed their minds. If you can tell what I'm referring to, you can get yourself a gold star. Here's a hint. It begins with Steven and ends with Universe. On a side note, I am shocked she has anyone who's still a fan. How the fuck do you well, I mean... yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where you don't wanna poke the hornet's nest when you know that, like, the person behind something really questionable is, like, actually sort of unwell. I'm not dealing with that. But oh well. It's one of those things where, on one hand, watching it from a distance can be entertaining, but it's not if, like, you hit the hornet's nest with a hammer, and then the hornets come out. It's not fun. I do not recommend hitting hornet's nests with hammers. Or sickles. Come here. Where? I shall eat this flesh. This shall sustain me for some time. Yeah. Anyways, I would, like to thank you for watching. I have no clue what I'm going to be building here. I have some ideas, purely because, you know, I thought about it, and thought to myself, you know, ooh, we could do something here, but, like, really, I have no ideas. I'll think of something eventually, mind you, you know, it's normal for me to say I have no ideas and then eventually figure something out, but yeah. So yeah, anyways, I'll thank you for watching. My idea for this is that these would be, like, just some underground tunnels. I don't know what I would do here. Maybe I could have something, I don't know. Oh wait, maybe I can just raise all of this up a little bit, so it's like, No, I want to do it by more than a block. Like this, yeah. Yeah, kind of like that. So yeah, that way there's no mistake when you go up. Oh, I should also, yeah. And then, yeah, this could be one tunnel that goes to somewhere. Up there could be, like, yeah, another tunnel that goes to somewhere, we'll see. And, I don't know. Oh, actually, while we're here, just to not make it look like shit, because there was coal here previously, I'll just, you know, fill this in. And, I mean, there you go. We've done quite a bit of work in this episode. We've, I'll move this back by another... No, I'll cover it up. Looks better. Actually, I'm gonna have to widen this path a little bit. Just so it looks nicer. Yeah, like that. And then by adding this, now it seems to be a better width. I don't know why, but it just does. I thought about putting fences on this side. Eh? Sure, actually, why not? I was gonna say, you know, bye-bye, and then the Markiplier ending plays, but no. I made that joke a bunch of times, and, it's still kind of funny to me, not gonna lie. Okay, another thing here that's nice now is that, this means I can block off most of this side. Yeah, like this, and then... Sure, why not? And then, yeah, we do this. So there we go, it's like a proper little bridge. Ain't that just the most wonderful thing you've seen? Probably not. There's probably more wondrous things in the world than a bridge in Minecraft. But yeah. And now finally, I can say, what did Markiplier say? He said like, and I'll see you in the next one. I don't know. Whatever. But I mean, this does seem like a really cute little area, right? Right? Anyways, yeah, see you next time. Bye-bye.